Thank you so much for having me today. So, before we start, I wanted to ask you all a few questions. I don't need the answers, just raise your hand if you think you know it, okay? So, who here knows what's happening in Chile right now, where the whole country is on strike? Raise your hand if you know the answer. Okay. Who here knows who Jack Layton was? Better, all right. Who here knows who this lady is and what she's doing there? Thank you, David. Last question. Who here knows why so many Americans are moving to Brazil right now? Great. Guys, I'm here to talk about curiosity, about broadening your horizons. I called it gathering the dots. Why? Well, if intelligence is the ability to connect the dots, the first step is to gather them. That's what curiosity is about, at least as far as I'm concerned. We worry a lot about connecting the dots, a lot less about gathering them. I don't think it's talked enough about. So before we go to this, I wanted to introduce myself. This is my name. It's hard to spell, hard to pronounce. Ana Rascouët-Paz. Rascouët is the French half. My father is a French teacher. Paz is the Colombian side. My mom is a housewife, and she's from Colombia. I was born in 1980 in Abu Dhabi. My father is also a globetrotter, and he dragged the entire family around the world. These are the countries where I lived and grew up. So I was born in Abu Dhabi, that's in the United Arab Emirates, near Saudi Arabia. From there we moved to Kinshasa in the Republic of the Congo for about 5.5 years. From there we moved to Brazil, in Sao Paulo, another 5.5 years. When I was 14, we went to France where I did my high school and the first couple of years of university. After this, I moved to St. Louis, Missouri for about a year. I don't know why. Spent a year there, and then went from there to Spain, in Madrid, for 2.5 years. Just living the life, partying, that's what you do in Spain. And then from there to London, where I spent 6 very significant years. I am completely in love with London. I had a quick stint in Brussels also, covering the European Union. That was very quick. I'd prefer to ignore it. Anyway, London. So I got there in 2004. Shortly thereafter, I was hired by Bloomberg News. First as a producer, covering the Spanish, French, European markets, like a variety of political events, elections, things like that, and then as a reporter covering sovereign bonds and currencies. So, you see this? I was there. I covered that. In the spring of 2007, one of my friends wrote a story about how banks were hiring en masse traders who specialized in distressed debt. That's subprime debt. That was the spring of 2007. We knew something was happening. September 2008, 15th of September 2008, that's a Monday. I'm on the early shift. I get to work. It's 5:30. I've seen every headline, possible headline on my BlackBerry. It's pretty scary. We get there. It's just me and my friend Eric, just the two of us sitting in that newsroom. The phones are ringing off the hook. Henry Paulson had a very long weekend. Lehman Brothers crashed that day. It's pretty scary. But it was a great, great time to be a financial journalist. I don't regret a minute of it. You know, the few months that followed were absolutely fascinating. I don't regret a minute of it. It was a really great time. So anyway, the reason I want to talk about curiosity today, it's because it basically motivated every single decision I ever made. And when I went looking for inspiration, you know, people who already talked about curiosity, I decided to go to the TED site, TED.org. I figured, if any site can have talks about this, it would be the TED site. I found curiosity talks, 5 of them. This is how it compares with other talks tagged technology, design, and entertainment. So the point of this is to tell you that I think curiosity is taken for granted. We talk about intelligence, we talk about knowledge, we don't talk about the ability to gather the dots. So the first point I want to make is this. You're not a precious snowflake. Nobody here is. That's a good thing. The thing is, you go to anybody for professional advice these days, and they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, you want to make money? Find an angle, be special, be different. Bloggers, find a niche. And that's great. I love experts as much as the next guy. I think they're great, they're unbelievably reassuring, especially when you're going to the doctor. You don't want an orthopedic surgeon to look at your stomach. Fair enough. But what happens if you take this logic too far? Right? Okay, so here's what happens. A person like the author of this blog, we're not going to name it, her, is going to tell you, while she's promoting the whole thing, she's going to tell you, okay, well, you have to find a niche. I'm like, is mommy blogging not enough of a niche? What do you have to be to draw attention to yourself? Some kind of, Latino, single, lesbian mother of 3 Ugandan children? No, you can, motherhood, come on, seriously, that's bullshit. Motherhood is a universal experience. Everybody has their specificities. If you've ever seen the documentary Babies, and I recommend it, it's on Netflix, go see that. You'll know that being a child, having a childhood, being a mother, everybody experiences in slightly different ways, but on the whole, it's a very universal experience. So my point is to say, as Robert A. Heinlein put it, there's only so much you can do going into a very, very specialized field. And the interesting thing is that these days, what's really rare is the ability to be a generalist. Generalists are very, very hard to find. And when I say generalist, I mean people who put as much stock in the breadth of their knowledge as they do in the depth of it. Specialists, they're a dime a dozen. All of us are specialists, including me. People who are able to cultivate their curiosity, to look elsewhere, to look everywhere. These guys are rare. I want to encourage you to be one of them. Now, this is a strange situation because historically, polymaths were the accomplished people of the world, right? There weren't too many people who had access to higher education over the years. But when they did, it was important for them not to take every single subject as a standalone thing. This starts, 2,500 years before Christ. A guy like Imhotep, and then later on Aristotle. And then later on, you had people like Leonardo da Vinci, Blaise Pascal, Isaac Newton, all of these guys. They were as much interested in sciences as they were in philosophy, as they were in religion. These topics were not differentiated in their minds. They didn't waste any time trying to draw lines between them. Even your founding fathers, people like Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, they didn't have a label for themselves, Ben Franklin didn't introduce himself as an inventor. He was as much a scientist, a philosopher, a cunning politician, including Thomas Jefferson was the same. So what are we doing trying to put ourselves in small boxes? Doesn't make any sense. So I want to conclude this part by telling you this. This is a quote given to me by my friend Jen, who's over there. We have no idea where it comes from, but I think it makes a lot of sense. An abundance of curiosity is not a lack of focus. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It's fucking hard. It's really difficult because it takes work. It takes discipline. You're born with curiosity as much as creativity. But it's the same thing. It's a muscle that needs to be flexed over and over and over again. You can't let up, because if you do, it atrophies. It doesn't work. So what's the story there? You need to find ways to explore. You need to find ways to keep yourself curious and engaged. You need to entice yourself, even in the driest topics. This is what happened to me. When I started at Bloomberg, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. None whatsoever. I had gone to business school. I went to business school because I wanted to piss off my dad, who wanted me to study poli-sci. That was my only motivation. It worked. He was really pissed off. But I went 4 years not knowing anything, not understanding anything about what I was doing. I hated every minute of it. I almost dropped out. I hated it so much. So I got to Bloomberg as an intern, big smiley face. My editors saw right through it. They knew I had no clue what I was doing. I was faced with stuff like this. Just, what is that? Yeah, it goes up. It goes down, great. What do I know? I don't know. So I had to find ways to kind of keep myself interested. I mean, I was going to make a living. I had to write a story. I had to prepare an interview each day about what was going on in the markets. So here's something I love personally. I love stories of drama. I love Greek tragedies. I love opera. I love it when people, just disintegrate on stage and their whole lives, it becomes exposed. So in order to keep myself enticed, I decided to, see something like self-doubt, right? What's happening? What am I doing? Am I investing? Am I divesting? Is this good? Is this bad? What is the bet? Or stories of passion, or even tragedies, murder. So this is what I saw. This is what I saw to kind of keep myself interested in those really dry numbers. Covering bonds, sovereign bonds, that can be very dry. So you have to find ways of keeping yourself going. Why do you have to do this? Well, because this is what your brain is. Your brain's a sophisticated piece of machinery. It needs to be maintained. You have to keep yourself interested. This is what your brain should be doing every day. Now, think about it. What happens when you start getting interested in a topic that you've never explored before? You're going to be adding dots. You're going to start thinking in 3D. You're going to be starting adding lots and lots of nuance to your thinking. Add layers of context. You'll be understanding any given issue, not just from the surface, but in a 360 kind of perspective. You're going to have a very strong foundation for your opinions. So once you do that, you're much able to stand by them, by your positions. You're much stronger to defend your opinions, to defend your work. I mean, as designers, you have to defend your work all the time to clients, right? This is how you become convincing, by knowing exactly what you're doing, by knowing exactly what you're talking about. And then you can start solving problems. Once you've got your head around something really complicated, something really dry, you can start thinking about using the tool that you've developed to get your head around it in other areas. Your job is to problem solve. Now, here's another advantage of doing this. Not long ago, I interviewed a very, very smart man called John Prosnitz. He's a chemical engineer at UC Berkeley. This man has a very long career. He discovered things that are too complicated to talk about, but he's basically a genius and a huge advocate of curiosity, of expanding your horizons. This is what he said to me. Science grows at the periphery. In other words, medicine would be nothing without physics today. Statistics and design, that gives you infographics. Politics is nothing without philosophy. There are crossroads. It is our job to go find them. So while you do all this, you have to bear in mind that as you learn, as you keep yourself interested and engaged in the world and connected, you're going to change your mind about 10,000 times. That's a good thing. In French, we say, il n'y a que les imbéciles qui ne changent pas d'avis. That's what it means. Yeah, we're pretty arrogant. So be ready to change your mind. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. I'm just going to give you a quick story to tell you how changing your mind always kind of helps. In the summer of 2009, I was asked, it was me and a colleague of mine, we were asked to look at the British pound to see what it was doing. It had been on a 5-month rally. It had been doing amazingly, really great. And we thought, you know, there's a story there. Should we tell our investors, our readers, to invest in the pound? Should we do this? It looks really good. So it was going to be a feature story. A lot of research was involved. There was a lot of data. So we went looking for it, and we started talking, and then a couple of people, strategists, investors, a couple of them, when we were interviewing them, weren't, you know, no. It looks as if, I don't know, but it looks as if the British government is actually trying, not explicitly, but actively trying to weaken the pound, so we're actually getting out of it. It was contradictory. You know, the pound was doing really well. People were excited about it. We could have stuck with our positive story or not done the story at all. Instead, we went for the down story. We went for the story where the Bank of England is injecting a lot of money to weaken it. That's what we did. We ran the story. We got 25,000 hits that day. This is enormous. It's Bloomberg, you know, it's a Bloomberg terminal. There are very few available in the world. 25,000 hits were pretty huge. And as a result, the market turned. The pound went from going up to going down, and then it started going down for a few months. So change your mind. Be ready for that. That's important. Now, as you do all this, this is what you have to keep in mind. San Francisco. I'm talking to San Francisco in particular, after having been in one of the most connected cities in the world, which is London. San Francisco is idyllic. It's the perfect island at the very edge of the world. We're at least 3 hours behind whatever's happening in New York and Washington, 9 hours behind Europe, a day away behind Tokyo and Hong Kong. Everything is made so that we can just live our lives very content, very unaware of what's going on around us. More, you know, on top of all that, we're all in tech. Everybody here has a Twitter account, right? Yeah? I mean, I assume that's the case. I can guarantee you that if you go to your Twitter account and you start counting the people that you follow, you'll see that 75% of them are white males. I promise you that if I'm wrong, please tweet at me. I want to be proven wrong, because this is what's happening. 90% of these people have the same tastes and opinions as you do. It feels really safe and comfortable. It's unbelievably dangerous. You know, this is what's happening. If you guys read the New York Times on a regular basis, you might have seen this story a couple of weeks ago. The statistics was quoted. Roughly half this country, roughly half the population of this country lives in landslide counties. Now that's scary. What does it mean? It means that half of the people in this country are surrounded by people who think, act, and vote exactly like them. That's dangerous. We can't be surprised that they can't get it together in Washington. That's what's happening. You have to open up. You have to claw your way out of it. And you people are smart, so you can do it. You have the means, you know exactly how to go about it. I'm just going to give you a quick example. You guys remember the first mission of MacGyver? Anybody here remember the pilot? No? Okay, great. So they call MacGyver, desperate situation, a bomb exploded in the lab, it's a rescue mission. He gets in there, all MacGyver-y, starts asking questions, grabs a bag, an empty bag, and prepares to go into the fire. One of the guys there, his name is Colston, turns to him and says, "What are you doing? This bag is empty. Where are you going like this?" This is what MacGyver says. This is so deep, guys. I mean, this is unbelievably deep. You should be thinking in the exact same way. You never know what you're going to learn. You never know what you're going to learn, and also you never know when you're going to be able to use it. There's no such thing as too much knowledge, and boredom is not an excuse. You have to get in there. Last but not least, there's a few things that I use every day to keep myself connected. The first thing is a friend. Find a friend, somebody who's thinking you trust, somebody whose thinking is rigorous and honest and sincere. But more importantly, find somebody who disagrees with you on everything. Go argue with them as often as you possibly can. Get scrappy. Blood will be drawn. That's how you have to think about it. What this does is it's going to help you define your ideas. When they're challenged, you're going to be forced to shape them. You're going to be forced to back them up. You're going to get a thicker skin. Everybody here needs it, including me. You're going to lose your fear to argue. Find a friend you can do this with. It'll be one of the best things that you can find. The second thing you need, a passport. Why? Well, turns out 96% of the world's population lives outside these borders. Go find them. They're not going to come knock on your door, tell you everything they know. Go find them. Get yourself in an international mindset. Just for curiosity, who here doesn't have a passport? You all have a passport. That's great. Third, this is for me. This is my publication of reference. You need to find what works for you, but for me this works because they have sharp analysis. Most of the time their conclusions are very much to the right of mine, right? They're not a center publication, but their analysis is unbelievably sharp. The way that they present the facts should be the way that you should be thinking about everything. It's well-rounded. It's concise. They write from everywhere in the world as if they were insiders. That's important. So this is the kind of stuff that you should be aiming to emulate. So this is what works for me. I encourage you to find what works for you and to let your minds crack open. Thank you very much.
Is now smarter than anyone they'll be talking to for the rest of the day. Does anybody have any questions for Anna?
Wow.
Blown them minds. Yes.
Can you tell us why we should know about those first 4 images that you talked about?
Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. I'm going to be tweeting the answers later on, so just kind of go check that. These are things that are happening right now in the world. You know, I mean, obviously for me it's easy because I've grown up everywhere. I feel like I'm close to everything that's happening, all of the examples that I've given you. It's important to see where you find yourself as a country, as a culture, in comparison with other places. You know, you never find out as much about yourself as when you go explore outside, you see what's happening elsewhere. Because it teaches you a lot about your values. It gets you to question what you thought was really obvious. So that's why. But yeah, I'll be tweeting the answers soon.
Stay tuned. Anybody else?